Welcome to Copilot Podcasts. You know that dream of owning your own home? Well, for middle-income families in Sri Lanka's cities, that dream is getting further and further out of reach. Today, we're diving into the urban housing crisis, exploring why it's happening, and most importantly, what can be done about it.
And it's a crisis that's backed by some pretty stark numbers. Recent data shows housing demand has surged by 11.9% over the past decade, while supply only grew by 9.5%.
Wait, that might not sound like a huge gap to our listeners. Can you break down what that actually means in real terms?
Well, we're looking at a shortage of nearly 190,000 housing units across the country. And in Colombo alone, there's a deficit of almost 27,000 units.
That's a lot of families without proper housing options.
Exactly. And here's something interesting. Despite all this pressure, Colombo's city population is actually decreasing.
Hold on, how is that possible with such high housing demand?
It's because people are being pushed to the outskirts. The core city is becoming unaffordable for middle-income families.
You know, it reminds me of that old Austin Powers joke where he demands $1 million as if it's this huge sum.
Right. And now that barely buys you a decent house in urban areas. The housing market has completely transformed.
So what's the government doing about this?
Well, there's actually a new program called A House for You, A Tomorrow for the Country that just increased its aid to 1 million rupees per housing unit.
That sounds promising. Is it making a difference?
The challenge is that even with this aid, construction costs have skyrocketed. What used to cost about 1.1 million rupees now costs over 1.7 million.
So families still can't bridge that gap?
Exactly. And this is where it gets interesting. There's been a fascinating development in how urban-rural linkages have evolved over the years.
Tell me more about that.
The government's Village Reawakening and rural empowerment programs have actually strengthened these connections, which has helped slow down rural-urban migration.
That's unexpected. So it's actually helping manage the urban housing crisis indirectly?
To some extent, yes. But we're seeing new solutions emerge, like microhousing, which is particularly interesting.
Microhousing? That sounds tiny.
It is, but here's what's fascinating. It's especially appealing to two very different groups: young professionals and elderly retirees.
Now that's surprising. Why those two groups specifically?
Young professionals appreciate the modern, low-maintenance lifestyle, while elderly retirees find it easier to manage and more affordable.
But are these micro units actually livable?
Research shows they can be, with proper design. The key is maximizing natural lighting and ventilation while minimizing material wastage.
What about the social aspects? Living in such small spaces must affect community life.
That's a crucial point. Studies of vertical housing developments show that while dwelling satisfaction often increases, overall residential satisfaction can decline due to reduced social interaction.
So we need to balance density with community needs?
Exactly. And this is where urban design theories come into play. We need to create spaces that encourage community interaction even in high-density environments.
What about the middle-income families who still want traditional housing?
The Urban Development Authority has actually identified potential lands suitable for residential apartments with good accessibility and infrastructure.
That sounds promising. Are there any success stories?
Yes, projects like the Orugo Dawata Housing Project are specifically targeting middle-income families with 2- and 3-bedroom apartments.
And are these actually affordable for middle-income families?
That's where the challenge lies. Even with government support, many families struggle with the remaining costs.
It seems like we need a more comprehensive solution.
Absolutely. And that's why the government's 2025 budget has allocated 18 billion rupees specifically for low-income housing.
That's a significant investment.
Yes, but it needs to be part of a broader strategy that includes private sector participation and regulatory reforms.
Speaking of regulations, what's holding back more innovative solutions?
Current building codes and regulations actually create barriers for implementing micro-living solutions in Colombo.
So we need policy changes too?
Exactly. We need a multifaceted approach that addresses both physical infrastructure and regulatory frameworks.
Let's talk about quality. How do we ensure these housing solutions are actually good places to live?
Research from the University of Moratuwa emphasizes the importance of quality of space indicators, things like lighting, ventilation, thermal quality, and functionality.
Those sound like basic requirements, but are they being met?
Unfortunately, not always. Studies show that as vertical growth progresses, these quality indicators often decline.
That's concerning. What about the social impact?
Research shows that community spaces often get sacrificed as buildings grow taller, with ground floor areas becoming restricted by staircases and fixed layouts.
So we're solving one problem but creating others?
That's why we need to think holistically about housing solutions, considering both physical and social needs.
What role can technology play in all this?
The government is actually implementing digital transformation initiatives to modernize welfare distribution and ensure transparency in housing programs.
That sounds promising for reducing corruption.
Yes, they're launching the Sri Lanka unique digital identity system to better track beneficiaries and eliminate fraud.
As we wrap up, what's the most important thing for people to understand about this crisis?
That it's not just about building more houses, it's about creating sustainable, livable communities that support both physical and social needs.
And what gives you hope for the future?
The increasing recognition that we need innovative solutions, from microhousing to digital transformation, and the willingness to try new approaches.
That's encouraging. Any final thoughts?
Yes, housing isn't just about buildings, it's about building communities. And that's what we need to keep in focus as we move forward.
Well said. And with that insight, we'll wrap up today's episode of Copilot Podcasts. Remember, the housing crisis isn't just about numbers, it's about people, communities, and the future of our cities.
And just like those microhousing units, sometimes the biggest solutions come in unexpected packages.
Thanks for joining us on Copilot Podcasts, where we explore the challenges shaping our urban future, one conversation at a time.